So, hello everyone. It's really lovely to be back again from America, which was just amazing. The Mother Tree Retreat, I think, really kind of confirmed to me everything about us flowing in the direction of synarchy and awakening our priestess, creative, sound healing gifts. And yeah, so we're going to be looking at some of those things as we go on this journey. And this kind of feeling I've had from the beginning that we are a lineage of the ancient temples of Apollo and Hygeia, who we're going to be doing today. And we're going to be sharing, got quite a lot to get through today because I a kind of background to what oracular priestesses, who were they, what kind of things were they doing, and what changed in our history of our evolutionary thinking. And so I'm going to do a bit of an overview today, and then also look at Hygeia, who's a really fascinating healing goddess. And one of her key things actually is circadian rhythms. So it's really lovely to jump from Tara's spring cleanse starting today into talking about circadian rhythms and their importance from a healing point of view. So if you're in Soul Tribe already and you want to get into that deep circadian rhythms through the season, then join the cleanse. And if you're not part of Soul Tribe, join up. There's just so many amazing things available, including my astrology. So if you happen to be watching this. Okay, so I'm going to go into screen sharing. We'll have questions and time for conversation at the end because I'm recording. So if you do speak, bear in mind you're going to be on YouTube. But I will stop the recording for our sharing at the end. Okay, so I just wanted to, let me go into the slideshow. So the announcements to make. First of all, the next Venus moon gate. Now we missed the third one when I was in California, but the fourth heart chakra gate falls on Sunday, the 22nd of April, and it actually coincides with Eve's art class. So Cheryl and myself will be doing a Mother Tree theme. Cheryl's actually created this amazing tree of life celestial communication for one of Eve's children. So it was lovely that they were actually all in this Mother Tree energy as well, even though they weren't physically with us. So we're going to be tuning into the Mother Tree and we're going to be doing some creative writing. And the 35 is where the portal of the Venus and Moon meet, which is wormholes and miracles. So I'm really interested in exploring this idea of the Mother Tree and the universal tree of life, the Kabbalah, as an interdimensional portal. So that's what we're going to be doing on that day. So put that in the diary. And then the Pearl sequence starts tomorrow, and we're going to be doing the life work and the brand. And it's at the new time of 8 a.m. Pacific. So you can have a whole lovely run of things on Soul Tribe every morning for a while. Okay, so this series kind of, I tend to kind of have an intuitive insight about what to do next. And this kind of appeared to me, the Oracular Asteroids. And I want to acknowledge, though, that my understanding of this is really influenced by Demeter George, who was the first astrologer to really go deeply into the goddess asteroids. Amazing, her name is Demeter as well. So she's written many books, she's traveled to Greece, and she's done a lot of research about the goddess asteroids. So this particular one that we're going to do, down here we've got Hygeia, which we're going to do today. Gaia, now I think the timing of that is kind of amazing, because Gaia is she's like the grandmother of our solar system. So she's both the mother of Uranus, the sky, and also then she has she has Uranus without any male intervention, if you like. And then her and Uranus start to create the solar system. So it feels very fortuitous that we're just in this big Aquarian energy. And I have a feeling our understanding Gaia and Uranus is going to kind of bring some insight into something maybe haven't looked at before, or I certainly haven't. So this whole series is set against the backdrop of the evolutionary changes that as human beings and how our brain has worked. So there's a book called The Origins of Consciousness and the Breakdown of the Bicameral Mind by Julian James. So if you are really drawn to this element of what I'm saying, this is where my information has come from, and you can go much deeper into this if you want to. But in a nutshell, prior to 1500 BC, right brain thinking was much more the norm. In other words, people were much more visual and auditory. So I receive often like auditory sort of inner comments from my higher self, and you know, do this, do that, let's look at this, you know, and this was a pretty normal way of thinking in those times. But about that time, 1500 BC, there's a big shift in our evolution. So this is something that, you know, is a natural part of our evolution. And we started to develop the left brain and our capacity for reasoning. And then we have some really big events like the witch hunts. You know, a huge amount of people go into monasteries and nunneries who have these kind of oracular gifts. And so actually within the DNA pool, the oracular gifts become much more of a rare thing. And this more kind of reasoning left brain approach that we're really familiar with since the Industrial Revolution is kind of more the norm. But what we're seeing now, and especially the Aquarian age is really going to accelerate this, is a kind of coming together of the left and the right sides of the brain. And I just find that so exciting to just imagine what we might be like, you know, in another 50, 100 years, when we're actually using both sides of our brains and what we can potentially create. So what was the role of priestesses in ancient times? Well, they took care of the temples, you know, the Vesta priestess is known for the keeping of the sacred flame, keeping that alive. But one of their key roles is that they were oracles. So you've probably all heard of Dodona and Delphi, especially Delphi in ancient Greece. That's like a really well-known one. But one that kind of has come to me in the last few years, which I bring up from time to time, is the Siwa oasis in Libya, where Pallas Athena, Minerva, that kind of whole artistic astronomy tradition. This seems to be one of the earliest examples, apart from Sumeria, which is the kind of birthing of civilization, where we have priests and priestesses. And then we're going to be looking in our third week, we're going to look at the Apollo temples, which really have creativity at their heart. Okay, so they were considered to be direct forms of divination and indirect forms. So the direct forms were considered to be superior, and Cicero is where this kind of influence writing record comes from, and he was influenced by Plato. So we have these direct forms of divination, and the one that was actually seen as the highest was the intuitive mind connected to deity, which I find really fascinating, because this is essentially what Delta and the 7 sacred seals are, bringing the higher bodies into communion and connection with the lower bodies. So for me, you know, I do believe that there's a vast creator presence that is, you know, at work. But in a way, it feels like all we need to do is be able to access these monadic, atmic bodies, the Buddhic plane, and then we're kind of tuned in anyway to all of that. So essentially, we're trying to create a connection with our higher self as the gateway into the cosmos and this vast intelligence. Another form of divination was dream visions. And here we have the god Asclepius, who is the adopted son of Chiron, and there's 2 asteroids called Asclepius and Asclepia. I think that's how you spell it. So as well as Hygeia, if you're into this kind of dream visioning, the dream arc, sound healing, you know, you might be interested to see where those are. I actually do a report of these oracular priestesses. So if you want me to do the work for you, I can do that as well. So there was a special form of divination called incubation. And this is what the temple of Hygeia is known for. So people would come to her healing temples, and they would have a specific problem. And then they would stay in the temple, and through either their dream or the dream of a priestess, a kind of solution would appear to what was at the source of this problem. Another form of divination was necromancy, communication with the dead. I do find myself in this rather uncomfortable zone at times. So perhaps you do as well, with people who've passed over. And Hecate is a goddess asteroid that we can look at in relation to that. So then we get oracles and prophecy. So prophecy is considered to be kind of spontaneous visions. And most of our prophets we know are in the Bible. And prophecy is usually something that's for the collective realm. But there's also this kind of oracle where someone comes with a specific question. And this is where astrology kind of became elevated as a very high form of oracles above most of the other indirect forms, but not necessarily these direct forms. So, so you go to an astrologer and through perceiving the cosmic energies, you're able to find an answer to a question. And then there's some indirect forms of divination as well, like the flight of birds and animals, weather phenomena. In ancient times, the sacrifice of animals was very popular, which thankfully it isn't anymore, and the casting of lots. Okay, so we're going to be looking at Gaia next week, but so I'll probably share this again actually, but I just wanted to kind of point out how kind of high up Gaia is. And Gaia was also, I should say this, Gaia was an oracular being in ancient Greece. And so you can see here that Gaia is kind of self-created almost, and then Uranus and Gaia create all these other beings, like Hestia is Vesta, Hades is Pluto, Poseidon, Demeter, Artemis, Persephone, Apollo. So loads of these other deities actually emanate from Gaia. And I wasn't really aware of that because I've not done Gaia as an asteroid before. But she is like the grandmother of the whole solar system. And I just always kind of think of Gaia as Earth, but actually thinking of her as grandmother of the solar system, she suddenly got a kind of wow factor about her that is even greater than the one I'd given her, which is pretty big anyway. Okay, so let's move on to Hygeia, who you can find her in your birth chart. If you have a chart from me, she will appear with a little caduceus symbol. You can look up her position in human design and astrology at Taraka.io and find out where she is for you. So I like doing the HD gene keys because I think it gives a more kind of specific energy. So just to give you an example, so my Hygeia is just right at the beginning of Leo and in the 11th house. So my healing capacities are really good in groups, internet groups like this one. And also Leo is the sign of creativity. So I totally feel that to be true of me. And then when I look at the gene key, it's gene key 56, which is all about a kind of intoxication and a real kind of pleasure in life and the senses. So it gives like a nice layer, I think, to look at your gene keys as well. Okay, so Hygeia has a sister called Panacea, and in ancient times, they are the breasts of the cosmic mother, the left and the right breast. I can't remember which one is which. And there's a record of them about 500 years before ancient Greeks records them as the daughters of Asclepius, who I mentioned before as the father of medicine. And you can look up his asteroid as well. So Asclepius and Hygeia are both connected with this idea of dreaming temples. So from the outset, can't remember who was here in the beginning, actually. I'm not sure any of you were here right at the start, but this Venus moon in a sanctuary, it was called then, started at the winter solstice in 2021, when Venus started her 40-day retrograde. And I kind of perceived this was the time to create the temple. And I really felt at that time, just intuitively, that it was a temple of Apollo, Hygeia, Asclepius. That was kind of what we were working with. What was amazing is that my friend M died pretty much at the same time as this temple was created. And she appeared and helped me at the other side. And I feel, I remember Patricia, one of her friends who died, being present on the other side for us. So I feel there's many guides and allies, not even in this dimension, who are helping us with this temple. And this is the M, who is was Adam's wife, who I'm now partners with. So the whole thing is just like, okay, I don't know how that happens, but yeah, it was interesting that she became part of, it's like she became a priestess of the temple, but from the other side of, you know, the third dimension we're in. So what's been really fascinating for me is how creativity has evolved. Firstly, through the celestial communication, which I've always felt to be like a really powerful form of prayer, because you're encoding movement and sound into your aura, and we're doing it together. And so we're creating this really powerful field of prayer whenever we do the celestial communications together. And I've done them, Kristen's doing it now as well. It's catchy, celestial communication, and Cheryl does it as well. And it's a beautiful creative process to come up with these movements to songs and things. And then, of course, the other thing that came in sometime after the temple started was Eve's art class, which I know we all find like totally wow, and the interconnectedness of everything really comes out of it. So I guess I want to say that I don't feel that the creativity is a kind of coincidence. I think we should really value the creativity at being of the heart of all we do, and recognize that we're actually all operating in this very long lineage of priestesses and healers on the planet, and we're kind of reclaiming these gifts in this Aquarian, you know, where the right is now coming back into balance with the left hemisphere of the brain. Okay, so a bit on the discovery, because I always feel the discovery and where it was discovered can tell us something interesting about these bodies. So she was discovered on the 12th of April, 1849. Quite interestingly, I only found this out today, she's actually considered to be a dwarf planet now. And so that kind of gives her more importance. And that happened in November 2019. And that's because they discovered she was round. So in order to be a dwarf planet, it's got to be a round planet. And it's got to be of a certain size as well. So Ceres and Pluto are some of the dwarf planets you would be familiar with. And she was discovered in the cross of the Maya. The Maya meaning the big illusion, basically. So for me, she helps us break through the illusion with this cross. And it has the 42, the 32, the 61, and the 62. And apparently something with this cross is that understanding fully how your environment works is really key to being at peace with this cross. So that for me really taps into the circadian rhythms, you know, how this human body is interacting with the environment. I'll say a bit more on that in a bit. So 42, you could say, is the life work of Hygeia. It has the shadow of expectation, the gift of detachment, which is always one of my favorite gifts, and the city of celebration. And I really felt that city actually at the Mother Tree gathering. It was just this wonderful celebratory energy. It was so beautiful. And I hope it's rolling out to everyone who couldn't make it as well. We were really aware of sending that energy out to everyone who couldn't be there. Okay, so the other gifts of this cross then are the 32, preservation, the 61 is inspiration, and the 62 is precision. And I kind of feel her almost in the preservation of the human body, you know, our kind of really incredible evolution of DNA that a human being represents. If you think of it in that way, we're pretty flipping fantastic. And our role, especially in this huge mutation, is perhaps to preserve that which is best about humans. And today, Hygeia is in Gene Key 19, line 3, which is 10 degrees Aquarius. So whatever, if you have anything in your chart there, you're having a Hygeia transit. Okay, so the healing properties of Hygeia. You'll remember that I talked about Hygeia and panacea. Panacea means to heal all. Hygeia is linked to the word hygiene, which means the prevention that you take to keep your health good. So they're the breasts of the Great Mother, and according to their teachings, mother's milk is the most healing substance on the planet. Now, I really love that because, you know, so much of my background has been in understanding the importance of attachment to our mother and the problems that arise when we don't have that attachment. And also, I think, you know, so others might want to say more on this, but mother's milk is like such a fundamental foundation of our physical health, our immune system, and the whole breastfeeding actually wires up our brain at birth to be kind of fully online. So if we weren't breastfed, I wasn't breastfed, and my brain's working quite well. But the best way to get your brain wired up is to be breastfed by your mother. Now, I found Hygeia very much linked to our kind of fascination. You know, for me, it's the last maybe 6-7 years that there's really been an interest in sound healing and brain states. So the alpha brain state is shamanic drumming, theta is gong baths, delta is our deep sleep. Richard Rudd talked about one which came up at the Mother Tree retreat, which is Epsicon, which is womb consciousness. And then another important connection I found is the connection of the male-female telluric lines in Gaia to our own sort of energetic structure of male and female, and the kind of acupuncture lines of the body being reflected in the way Gaia is created. So, well, Gaia created us in her image with these telluric lines of energy. And we're co-creators, just as we can create healthy lines of energy in our body. You know, say we're doing the spring cleanse, so now we're working on the wood energy, our liver, and this, in the same way, we can co-create with Gaia to kind of clean up the energy lines, but also to actually energize the energy lines. So we're not passive sort of people living on the earth. We really are the co-creators of the health of Gaia. Okay, so this is just the HD chart here. Let me just try and close that for a minute. So here you can see the sun was in the 42 line 4, the earth 32 line 2. Let me use the spotlight. So these here and these on the design side are what give us the cross in human design, the sun and the earth. Now, other gene keys I would associate with oracular abilities would definitely be the 17 and 18. So it's interesting that Mercury is in the 17 there. And we have Mars and Neptune in the 55 line 5, which keeps coming up. And this is just feels like such a powerful energy for freedom, and freedom in the body, freedom on Gaia. You know, it feels like if we attune our bodies to nature in this powerful way, it gives us some kind of amazing level of freedom. And we have Saturn design in the 22 line 5. Yeah, we also have Pluto in the 42 line 6. So lots of powerful energies that are encoded in this discovery chart. Okay, so that is my super whiz presentation. Just going to see 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. So we've got 25 minutes left, and there's 5 of you on the call, which means you don't have to take as much as 5 minutes if you want to share, but you have up to 5 minutes. And I've got a little tingy bowl, which is nicely here and Eve's thing. So if you're going over, I will ding the bell, and then you can just wind up. Okay, so I'm going to pause the recording and hand over to you guys.